Hey, what's going on, everybody? Lately I've been making these videos where I pick a specific console and I pick about 10 games to talk about from its library. Now, I know for most people they probably think to make like a top 10 video or a top 20 video or even a top 5 video, but for me, I've played so many video games in my day, and there's so many video games that I love in so many different genres and so many different franchises for so many different reasons that it's really hard, and basically it's genuinely impossible for me to just pick like a top 10 from each console. So rather than this being my top 10 favorite PS3 games, this is just 10 of my favorite ones, and then we can iterate on this in the future and maybe make like a sequel to this video of like 10 more PlayStation 3 games that I love. But for today, we're going to be going over 10 PlayStation 3 games that I absolutely love and cannot live without. So first things first, let's just go ahead and kick it off with one of the most, if you ask anybody who had a PS3 back in the day, or even like going to buy a PS3 nowadays, like, what's a must-buy game? Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. I could have picked any of the Uncharted games. They're all fantastic, but I feel like I speak for a lot of people when I say there's just something about Uncharted 2 that truly sticks with you. Between the opening that hints at what happens later in the game, all the way up to, well, like literally the end of the game with that insane final battle, like that whole final section of the game. I won't spoil it, but once you get to that place that you've been looking for the entire game, and you have like that whole entire final confrontation, it's absolutely insane. The set pieces in this game are incredible. The characters in this game are incredible. I always love the dynamic between Chloe and Nathan as well. Obviously, we all know who Nathan Drake's #1 girl is, but I mean, Chloe, she's still pretty badass. So if you're in the market for a PlayStation 3, or even if you have like a PS4 or a PS5, because they have the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection, which has Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, and even though it released for PS4, obviously the PS5 is backwards compatible, so you can play it there. Or if you're buying a PS3, I'd highly recommend picking up at least Uncharted 2, but I'd recommend picking up all 3 of the Uncharted games that released on PS3, because they're all freaking amazing. Next up, we got a game that I've talked about time and time again, that being Call of Duty Black Ops 2. I mean, what can I say about this game that not only has anybody else said before, but also just that I've said before? The campaign in this game, absolutely fantastic. We're finally going to be getting a sequel to it here with Black Ops 7, which is going to be really cool to see how they follow that up. The multiplayer in this game is absolutely timeless. Out of any of the like golden era Call of Duties, Black Ops 2 definitely had my all-around favorite multiplayer experience, whether we're talking about the Pick 10 system and the created class, or all the various maps that came out with the game at launch, but then also throughout the DLC season. Then you got all the amazing party games like Gun and Game returning from Black Ops 1, and a lot of the other stuff like Sticks and Stones, One in the Chamber, and all that. And I just feel like Black Ops 2, out of any of the golden era CODs, was the most social. Like, I feel like most of the nostalgic memories were made on this game just because there were so many different ways to play this game, right? Whether you have the multiplayer and you're just playing like, the game normally, or you're playing like Search and Destroy, or the party game modes, or if you're off playing zombies, doing all the Easter eggs, because the Easter eggs were obviously a lot more complex in this game. I just feel like Black Ops 2 all around, not only is it my favorite Call of Duty just just due to the gameplay and how amazing the game is, how amazing the game feels, and how timeless it is even to this day, but also just due to the fact that so many memories were not only created on this game, but even going back to it to this day, there's still plenty of memories to be made, even if you've never played the game before. So yeah, Black Ops 2 is just, again, it's just one of those no-brainers. It's like, oh, what can I even say? I love this game. Next up, we got The Last of Us, which is one of my top 5 favorite games of all time, and it's obviously one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 3. The Last of Us is a game that I played back when it initially released, but I was a bit younger at the time. So while yes, I like really enjoyed the game back then when I played it, it took until I replayed it back in 2021, 2020, somewhere in that vicinity, when I finally picked up The Last of Us Remastered on PS4. I know I was really late to the party on, getting the remaster there. But then I played through it again, just from start to finish, binged it the whole way through, and at that point, since I was a bit older and I was able to resonate with a lot of the things going on in the story, yeah, this game genuinely changed my life. Like, that's not an exaggeration. The Last of Us genuinely changed my life, both part 1 and part 2 in various ways. Just the way that I look at a lot of things in my life, whether that be the way that I process things emotionally, or just the way that it changed my perspective on a lot of things. Yeah, The Last of Us is an absolutely amazing game. And if you've somehow never played this before, essentially The Last of Us is a game where you're playing as this guy named Joel, and you need to escort, this girl on the cover, her name is Ellie, across the country, because there's like this zombie outbreak type thing in the game. They're not called zombies though, they're called clickers, and they're hyper aggressive. The clickers in this game are basically like zombies on all sorts of drugs and steroids, you know what I mean? Like, they're freaking crazy. There's a lot of stealth based gameplay in this game because of that. Like, you can't just go running around shooting all willy-nilly and whatnot. But anyway, this girl that you're escorting is like the only person in the world, it seems like, that is immune. So, you know, you're taking her across the country to this, you know, like medical base where they can hopefully develop a cure, and then you can kind of, you know, play the game and figure out for yourself where everything goes from there. But The Last of Us is an absolutely fantastic game, and there's so many ways to play this now, whether you play it on the PS3, play the remastered version on PS4 or on PS5 via backwards compatibility, or play The Last of Us Part 1 remake, which like completely overhauled the graphics and made it look like way more realistic there on PS5. There's so many ways to experience this game, so you really don't have an excuse not to experience it. Like, everybody has to experience this game at least once. There's also the first season of the HBO show, which was honestly pretty faithful to the game for the most part. I mean, they did change a few things around, change some of the characters around and whatnot, but for the most part, the HBO show, like season 1 especially, was pretty faithful. Obviously, we have yet to get season 3 at the time of recording this, so, you know, time will tell us how faithful season 3 will be and how faithful season 2 and 3 will be as a whole once it's all said and done to part 2. But as for part 1 and season 1, it's pretty spot on. So if you'd rather watch the show, you can do that. But above all else, if you have a way to do it, I highly recommend playing through the game. Even if it means like going on your PC or your phone or whatever and buying like a PS Plus premium subscription service and just streaming the game, because that is an option. Like, you just gotta experience the game at least once, no matter how you gotta do it. Next up is yet another game that I already talked about before. I talked about it on the Xbox 360 list, but it's just one of those things where it's like, we're talking about a different platform, so I just, you know, I still wanted to talk about it again. That being Grand Theft Auto 4, which is actually, this like, specific version of the game here on PlayStation 3 has the most nostalgia value for me, because I got it on PlayStation 3 first before I got it on Xbox 360. Basically, you know, if you've been watching the channel for any amount of time, you've heard this before. I had a PlayStation 3 at my dad's, had an Xbox 360 at my mom's, and I ended up getting this on PS3 first, and this classic cover art and this classic PlayStation 3 case style right here, because obviously later in the generation they changed it up and the PS3 logo went across the top there, but in the first half of the generation it was like this with the Spider-Man font where it like goes down the side, and I've just always loved how these cases look. Basically, in Grand Theft Auto 4 you play as a Russian immigrant named Niko Bellic who travels to America for the first time. It takes place in Liberty City, which is basically just New York City with a different name, and then he gets to experience firsthand the absolute horrors of living in America. Let's just put it as it is. Whether we're talking about drug dealers, hookers, bank robberies, the whole shebang, you know, if you can think of it, GTA 4 has it. This game's absolutely fantastic, man. You know, I know the driving is a little controversial in this game because it's really weighty and like quote-unquote realistic or whatever, but I always enjoyed the driving because it really makes you feel like you're in New York City, you know, you're like driving around, navigating past all the traffic. It literally gives you anxiety just driving around in this game, and you know, that's kind of like part of it. That's, you know, it's kind of an intended feature of the game. The gunplay in this game has always been really satisfying, and surprisingly, the servers are still online on both PS3 and Xbox 360, so no matter what platform you pick this up on, you can still find people playing online to this day, or if you have friends that you want to play with for old time's sake, you can do that, you know, drive around with your friends, start a bunch of cop chases, do, you know, do whatever. You got GTA 4, then you also got the episodes from Liberty City, which are technically like standalone expansion games to this, so if you want to play those as well, you know, you got Lost and Damned, Ballad of Gay Tony, and all that. And Ballad of Gay Tony was really like, I don't even know how to explain that expansion. It really feels like a blend of GTA 5 and GTA 4 kind of into one. Obviously it feels more like GTA 4 than it does GTA 5, but if you play that game, just when you look at the art style and a lot of the weapons and mechanics in it, it's just, you can see the beginnings of the GTA 5 mechanics in there, which I always thought was pretty cool. Next up, we have another one of my all-time favorite games, that being Dark Souls. Man, where do I even begin with Dark Souls? Well, first I'll say this, it is my favorite Souls game, right? Because if I had to rank the Souls games, I can't really do it off the top of my head right now, but it would go like Dark Souls 1, and then Demon Souls, and then like Dark Souls 3, and then like, I don't know, just like goes on from there to you know, to the other games like Elden Ring and all that. But Dark Souls 1, like, gosh, where do I even begin with this game? Okay, here's this. If you haven't played Dark Souls before and you've been avoiding the Souls series because you've heard from all those Johnny No Thumbs IGN reviewers that, oh, this game is the Dark Souls of this genre, and this game is the Dark Souls of this genre, and oh, Dark Souls is so difficult, and Dark Souls is so impossible, and oh, Elden Ring is the Dark Souls of open world games. Hear me when I say that no, Dark Souls is not that hard. Is it a challenging game? I mean, technically, yes. Do you know what else is a challenging game? Donkey Kong Country 2 on the Super Nintendo. Is it challenging at some parts? Yes. Is it impossible or really difficult? No. And that's the same thing with Dark Souls. You know the saying, get good? People don't say get good to be funny, to be like, oh, it's an impossible game, you just gotta get good at it. No, that's literally, like, the saying just speaks for itself. It's like, no, you just gotta get good at the game, learn the mechanics, and it's really not that bad. Like, nowadays, now that I've played this game so many times, like, it's not that hard to get through this game deathless, or at the very least, taking minimal deaths. Is there some parts that are annoying or questionably maybe maybe BS, cough cough, beta chaos, yes, that boss can suck my ass all day until the cows come home. But, you know, even then, that boss isn't inherently difficult because you can literally beat it in 3 hits. It's just a bit of RNG as to, like, what attacks that stupid tree thing does. But otherwise, like, it's really not that hard of a game. So if you've been putting off the Souls series just because you heard the games are really hard, or if you haven't experienced Elden Ring yet for some reason, then just stop listening to the Johnny No Thumbs IGN reviewers and please give this game a chance, because oh my goodness, let me tell you something, man. Anytime that I'm having anxiety or I'm just having like a bad day or a bad week or whatever, I turn on Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, whatever. Usually those are the first 2 that I go to. Even sometimes I don't even turn on the game in general. Sometimes I just turn on the soundtracks. The Firelink Shrine soundtrack and the Majula soundtrack alone is enough to heal the soul of like whatever is going wrong. But then when you actually like play the games and see those visuals, whether you're sitting at the bonfire Majula, you're sitting in the bonfire Firelink Shrine, that's like next level ascension, like a deeper level of understanding, automatic meditation. Nothing will make you feel as melancholic yet as, I don't even know what the word is for this. Maybe confident? Triumphant? I'm not really sure what it is, but when you sit at like these locations, it's like, okay, there's some melancholic, it's kind of sad, but it's like a moment of reflection, like, okay, I got this, I just gotta pull myself together and keep moving on. And I feel like that's really the synopsis of Dark Souls in general. It's not about the deaths, it's not about just overcoming the challenges, so that's a huge part of it. It's everything. It's about getting your ass kicked, getting knocked down time and time and time again, just like life does, but still choosing to fight on, still choosing a way around it, still overcoming the odds and beating everything in your way and making it to the end. And it's pretty cool because even once you get to the end, then you have like, you know, various options, which is like a trademark in the Souls games where you have like multiple endings you can choose from. So, you know, it's one of those things where even if the game doesn't say it directly, it's kind of like that nice little kick in the ass, nice little motivator to keep you going. Like, hey, sure, life's gonna knock you down time and time again. You're gonna want to give up, but if you don't, it will all be worth it in the end. Next up, we have another one of my all-time favorite games, that being Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Basically, to give you the synopsis of this game, it's, okay, what if you were an anime ninja warrior and that's it? That's it. You got all these different weapons and like crazy combos you can do in this game. I remember there's this one combo you can do. I don't even know what the hell it was called. But you lay on the floor and you literally turn into a Beyblade and you just like start spinning around and like chopping people's ankles. Like, it's freaking insane. I don't even know what to say about this game without spoiling it. The cutscenes in this game are great, the action is great, the music in this game. Okay, just to give you a taste of what this game has in store for you, look up the soundtrack called A Stranger I Remain from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, and then just think of that, and then think of playing as this main character on the front. You know, you got like this anime ninja warrior looking thing, like part cyborg, you know, you're playing as Raiden, and you're racking up combos, literally getting into like the hundreds, just hacking and slashing dozens of dudes at a time, getting into these crazy boss fights, because the boss fights in this game are super intense, man. They're, you know, even if you play the game on like the normal difficulty, if you don't utilize all the mechanics in the game, you're still probably going to struggle a little bit. Like, parrying is pretty important in this game. Is it as important as it is in, say, like Sekiro? No, not necessarily, because in Sekiro, you can literally just sit there like spamming L1 and you can typically get through it. But, I mean, here, like, even in Metal Gear Rising, right, you actually have to time your combos pretty well, and you have to, like, time your parries pretty well, know what works against each enemy. That is to be said, though, it's not like an overly difficult game, right? Like, this isn't like the Dark Souls of Devil May Cry, Ninja Gaiden type games, because I mean, I don't know, it's more like Devil May Cry than it is like Ninja Gaiden, but you know what I'm saying. If there's one game that I feel like is popular and yet still not enough people have played it, it is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. So please, if you haven't played it before, it's backwards compatible on Xbox One and Series X and S. It's also on PC, and unfortunately, it's only on PS3 and it hasn't been brought up to PS4 or PS5 yet. I hope they do that at some point in the future, but yeah, definitely play this game at least one time in your life. It's literally my top 5 favorite games of all time. It's that good. Next up, we have Assassin's Creed 2, but unfortunately, my case got a little mauled at some point, so I'll have to case swap that at some point. I hate when my cases are all messed up. Anyway, Assassin's Creed 2. This is, again, one of those games where I feel like everything that could be said about it has been said before, so I'm just gonna instead talk about some of my personal experiences with it. So to give you, like, a brief synopsis, if you're not aware of, like, what the Assassin's Creed series is, or, like, what Assassin's Creed 2 is, basically, it's a game that takes place in the modern era and the past era at the same time. There's, like, parts of the story that take place in the present, and then you're basically in this machine that allows you to relive memories of people and figures from the past. So in Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood and Revelation specifically, but in this case Assassin's Creed 2, you play as somebody named Ezio in the past. And unlike the newer Assassin's Creed games, I'm not dissing the newer Assassin's Creed games, you know, they're great and all, but you know, just talking about the older ones specifically, you actually play as an assassin in this one. So, you know, you live that life out, and it's pretty cool because if you want to follow the main story and see what happens to Ezio and all that, and if you want to like go on to play the other games, you can do that. Or if you just want to run around and cause chaos, you can do that. I spent so much time, I remember, especially on like the PlayStation 3 version of this game at my dad's house. I would just like pop the game in and I'd just run around for a while, man. I'd be parkouring around the city. You run, you hold R2 and you climb stuff, you jump across building tops, you know, you find people, and then you can do that thing where you like jump off of a really high building and get your hidden blade out and just like stab him in the throat and run before anybody sees it. One of my favorite things to do in Assassin's Creed games has always been to get like the authorities after me and then just hide in a hay bale. They'll be like, where did he go? But then like sometimes they'll find you and that kind of sucks, but still, Assassin's Creed 2, it's hard for me to pick an Assassin's Creed game that is my favorite. I mean, I don't know, it might still come down to like Black Flag or something like that, but I don't know, between like 2 and Black Flag, this one's definitely way up there for me. Next up, we have Batman Arkham Asylum. Now, it was really hard for me to pick about, like, you know, which Batman game I wanted to talk about, because obviously there's Batman Arkham Asylum, and then you got Arkham City, and then you got Arkham Origins, and they're all fantastic games in their own ways, and there's things that I love about all of them. But there's something about Arkham Asylum specifically that has always been my favorite, and I really do think it just comes down to that setting. You know, it's one of those things where, again, I love Arkham City, I love Arkham Knight, Arkham Origins, and all that. You know, running around an open world Gotham City is really cool, but I feel like the concept of being stuck inside of the madhouse, inside of Arkham Asylum with all these villains, and it's sort of like The Purge in a way, right? Because if you guys have never seen The Purge before, basically it's a movie where all crime is legal for like 12 hours, I want to say, and it's just, you know, it's absolute chaos. And that's kind of what this game feels like. It's like The Purge, but in the Batman universe, where it's like, okay, obviously the crime isn't legal, but all the villains are just like breaking out inside of Arkham Asylum. They're all tormenting Batman, and it is just, it all takes place basically over the course of a night, and it's just an absolute nightmare for Batman. The main villain in this game is the Joker, and again, Batman Arkham Asylum is one of those games where it's really hard to talk about this game without spoiling some of the experience. I mean, the combo and the combat system in this game is obviously very well known for being some of the best in gaming history. The way that you can flawlessly chain these elegant yet destructive combos together, because it looks so beautiful and freeform, and yet you're just absolutely bashing these goons' skulls in and like kicking them. Because I mean, you know, like Batman, you already know, like his gloves and his boots, they ain't made out of nothing soft. When he punches the goons, they're getting concussions. And yet the way it's all animated and rigged together, it just looks so elegant. You'll be like gliding around the room, just like beating up like 20 different goons all at once. And the way that it's all set up, you know, it's always very fair, because only a handful of goons will attack you at once. You got the counter system, so if somebody's behind you, you know, you can like punch him in the face, steal their weapon, kick him in the nuts, and then like throw him into the other guy. The Batman Arkham games are freaking fantastic. This is one of those times, again, where it's like, if you have to pick just one of them, I mean, just pick whichever one you could get your hands on. I'd recommend just starting from the beginning with Arkham Asylum and then, you know, playing them all the way through. I won't spoil it here either, but man, the final boss in this game is... Dude, that caught me off guard the first time that I beat this game. And it's pretty cool because obviously, since this is tied into the other Arkham games, everything that happens in this game ends up having, you know, a very profound impact on the things that come. So... yeah, Batman Arkham Asylum. Oh, and we can't even forget to talk about the challenge levels, because I remember, yeah, here on PlayStation, I'm pretty sure it was PS3 exclusive, you could play as the Joker on, like, some of the challenge maps, which is really cool. I made sure to buy, like, the version specifically that had that, because I remember I was, like, looking for a while. I was like, okay, I don't want a greatest hits copy of this game, but I want, like, you know, one of these classic label versions of the game where it has, like, the PlayStation 3 logo on the side, since this is how it first looked, but with, like, all the Joker content right there. As much as I diss those cringe Johnny No Thumbs IGN reviewers, this is the one time where I have to agree with them and say, yes, this game does truly make you feel like Batman. Next up, we're going to talk about Borderlands 2, which is home to my favorite Borderlands villain, that being Handsome Jack. So I remember playing the Borderlands games for the first time back in the day on Xbox 360, and from the first time that I played it, I fell in love. Because I played the first one first, obviously, and from that moment I fell in love. There's something about the Borderlands games that have always drawn me in. Maybe it's my ADHD, maybe it's just my overstimulated monkey gamer brain that just loves seeing high damage numbers and loot dropping on the floor, but everything that I loved about Borderlands 1, not only did they bring into Borderlands 2, but they took it to the next level, right? Because one of the things with Borderlands 1, going back to that game nowadays, is that the game is kind of overly brown and gray. Like, it's very much so an Xbox 360, PS3 era game where it's like, we're going for that gritty, realistic look, so everything needs to be brown and gray. But, you know, I'm not dissing that look. It's very much part of that generation's charm. But, you know, in this game, they stepped away from that, and they're like, all right, you know what? We're gonna give you this crazy lava world, and then this, like, snow world to start the game out in. And you got, like, all these, you know, awesome locations, and the weapons in the game are really cool. They took all the cool ideas from Borderlands 1, and then just made all the guns a lot more, like, fantastical in this game. And then you had, you know, a lot of the characters returning, like Claptrap, obviously. You can't have a Borderlands game without Claptrap. The classes in this game were really cool, too. I remember I usually ended up just playing as the soldier for some reason, but all the classes in this game were really cool. I'll never forget. I forget what the SMG was called, if I'm gonna be honest, but the first time that I beat this game, I got this one, like, fire SMG at some point, like, at some point through my playthrough, and that thing just carried me through the rest of the game. I'd have to look it up to see, like, what that gun is actually called, but I owe my first victory to this game. Oh my gosh. That also actually just summoned another memory. Okay, so not only did I cheese a lot of the game with that one SMG that I had, but also towards the end of the game, for some reason, I was like kind of under level going into the final like boss battle. So I ended up finding this cheese spot outside of the arena, and I don't know how I found it, but I sat there with my sniper, and I was able to just jump, shoot, jump, shoot, jump, shoot, and I was like really under leveled because again, this was like my first time playing it. It took me like 20 or 30 minutes to beat the boss because I just had to jump, shoot, jump, shoot, jump, shoot because I couldn't see him unless I jumped. Again, I don't even know how I got there, how I found the cheese, but I did it. And yeah, you know, that's definitely one way to conclude my first playthrough of Borderlands 2. But you know what? I'm kind of glad that all that chaos happened because now it's not, you know, it's just one of those things where I'll look back at it, tell like a funny story like this, like, hey, you want to know? I beat Borderlands 2 for the first time. I cheesed the fuck out of it. Handsome Jack and Butt Stallion, dude. Borderlands 2 is like one of my favorite games of all time. It's such a good game. If you haven't played it before, you have to. One of those things where if you're gonna play one Borderlands game and you can only get one for some reason, I'd say Borderlands 2 is definitely the one to go with. I mean, I recommend playing them all, obviously, but if you can only play one, you know, all the games are fairly standalone. You know, you could get through Borderlands 2 without any, like, prior understanding of the previous game. It even gives you, like, a bit of a recap at the beginning. So, yeah, definitely at least play Borderlands 2 if you haven't before. And then finally, Resident Evil 5, which is actually one of the first games that I played on PlayStation 3 when I got one back then. Resident Evil 5 has always been one of those games that I feel like is quite underappreciated in the grand scheme of just Resident Evil, right? You got a lot of people that are like, oh, Resident Evil 2 is my favorite, Resident Evil 1 is my favorite, Resident Evil 4 is my favorite. You know, I'm one of those Resident Evil 4 guys. Resident Evil 4 is literally my favorite game of all time. But I feel like Resident Evil 5 has always just been really underappreciated because when you look at RE5, it's literally just, okay, it's Resident Evil 4, except it's in Africa. It has co-op mechanics, which Resident Evil 4 kind of had, but to a lesser extent, because this one's actually like fully co-op and you're playing as Chris instead, you know what I mean? I will say there's some aspects to this game that feel a bit more Street Fighter-y, like when you're punching the boulder at the end of the game, or you know, Leon already had his crazy, like, roundhouse kicks in Resident Evil 4, but in Resident Evil 5, you shoot somebody in the face, you run up, and you straight up just do, like, a Ryu punch. Like, it's just so unapologetic. They might as well just fucking put the Hadouken sound effect in there. Quick little side tangent. I don't know if y'all have ever played Resident Evil The Mercenaries 3D on, like, the 3DS, but they actually had, that, like, first village stage from Resident Evil 5 in that game. They actually had a lot of the stages from, like, various Resident Evil games and they were remade. It was pretty cool. They even had, like, the RE4 village in there. Such an awesome game. But anyway, going back on track here. RE5 is freaking awesome. It's action-packed. It's basically just like RE4, but on the next generation of consoles. Well, you know, at the time, what was next generation of consoles on the PS3 and the Xbox 360? This is also one of those games where I feel like it did that Xbox 360/PS3 generation art style really well, you know, where everything's like really brown and gray or just sort of has that gritty filter over it of like, oh man, we're in the trenches now. This is one of those games where I really feel like it works. You know, I've seen some mods in the past that remove those filters and clean things up a bit, but I feel like it just makes the game look a bit too pretty. I really like how the game just looks by default. Like, that gritty look really works in this game. The final boss in this game is also really cool. I won't spoil it, but the way that they did it and just like the design of it, dude, it looks so cool. So yeah, Ryu punches, Sheva shenanigans, and boulder punches and all. I love everything about Resident Evil 5. This game's freaking awesome, and if you haven't played it before, it's definitely a game that I highly recommend. You can play it on literally every console nowadays. It was released on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and then re-released on like PS4, Xbox One, and I'm pretty sure they even did like a next-gen update at some point for like Series X and PS5. I might be wrong about that. Maybe that was RE6, but still, like, you know, the new gen consoles are still backwards compatible, so you really have no excuse. You know, I'm also an avid Resident Evil fan. I love every game in the franchise, so I'm really biased, and I'm going to tell you to play every Resident Evil when you get the chance, but, you know, still, Resident Evil 5 is one of those games that I really do feel like deserves more attention or love than it currently gets. But anyway, that was 10 of my favorite PlayStation 3 games. Again, this isn't like my top 10 because it's really hard for me to pick a top 10. This would definitely be like up there. Like, this was like the first 10 that I reached for, so maybe that says something, but again, it would be really hard for me to just consolidate a list of just 10 PlayStation 3 games that are my top 10 without feeling like I'm excluding some other games that deserve to be in that list as well. So no, what am I saying? I'm not probably gonna make a follow-up on this video at some point. I will definitely make a follow-up on this video at some point in the future, but for now, that's where it is. So now I would love to hear from you guys. What are y'all's top 10 or just 10 of your favorite PlayStation 3 games? I'd love to hear from you, or if you had an Xbox 360 back in the day, and not only did I also make a video on that, but I'd also love to hear from you as to like what your favorite games on that console were, since a lot of them, for example, like Resident Evil 5, are cross-platform games. But anyway, as always, a massive shout out and thank you to all the patrons and channel members. Thank you to all of you in the low ball tier, and an even bigger shout out to the ball team, asking and big dad many in the bitch that easy round of some legends. Thank you guys so much, guys. Little legends. I love you. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.